Journey to the West, an audio drama series. Chapter 40, Part 1. We speak now of great sage Sun and his brothers who descended from cloud and returned to the royal court. What they saw were the ruler, his heir, the queen, and subjects all approaching to prostrate in groups in order to express their gratitude. Xingzhe recounted to everyone how Bodhisattva subdued the monster, and once again they could not be more thankful. But just as they were celebrating, the custodian of the Yellow Gate came to report. "Master, 4 monks have arrived outside." Ba Jie panicked and said, "Big brother, could it be that the monster spirit played a magic trick and created a false Manjushri Bodhisattva to trick us? And now they've turned into monks again and come for a battle of wits against us." Xingzhe replied, "How could that be?" They then immediately summoned the visitors inside for a look. The civil and military officials passed down the order and had them enter. Xingzhe had a look and realized they were the monks from Baoli Monastery, and they came holding the emperor's cap, jade belt, robe of yellow ochre, and warriorless shoes. Overjoyed, Xingzhe exclaimed, "Just in time, just in time." He then called over the laborer and had him take off his disguise before changing back into his imperial attire. Afterwards, he instructed the crown prince to present the white jade tablet so the emperor could hold it in his hands. Soon, it was time for him to head up the royal hall and declare himself emperor. As the ancient saying goes, the royal court cannot go a day without a king. But the emperor was reluctant to sit down, only sobbing as he knelt down on the steps, saying, "I've already been dead for 3 years. It was all thanks to you, masters, who brought me back to life. How dare I claim the throne without your permission? Would any one of you masters be king instead? I will happily bring my wife and son outside the city and be a commoner." How could Sanzang accept that offer when his mind was solely focused on meeting Buddha and seeking scriptures? The emperor then pled to Xingzhe. Xingzhe laughed and said, "To be quite honest with everyone, if Elder Sun wanted to be emperor, I could have become the emperor for every nation and continent on this world. But we are too used to being monks with our lazy ways. Should I be emperor, I will have to grow my hair back out. There's no rest after dusk, and no sleep past the drumbeats. You're anxious whenever a message arrives from the borders, and upset when disasters arise. How could we ever feel comfortable with that? You shall still be the emperor, while I go back to being a monk, cultivating for merits." The emperor desperately pled to no avail, so he had no choice but go up the treasure hall and claim his throne facing south. Widespread pardons were announced, as well as huge rewards for the monks of Baoli Monastery before they were sent home. Only then did the emperor open up the eastern quarters to treat the Tang monk with a grand banquet. Meanwhile, painters were summoned by imperial edict so they could paint portraits of Tang monk and his disciples, which would be displayed for offerings in the hall of gold carriage. Master and disciples returned the nation to peace and dare not linger. They wished to bid farewell to the king and head west. The emperor, his queen and concubines of the 3 palaces, the crown prince, as well as government officials, presented national treasures, gold, silver, and silk, to the master as gifts of gratitude. Sanzang did not accept any of it. He only had his travel documents processed before telling Wukong and his brothers to hurry up with the horse so they could be on their way. The king felt rather inadequate about it, so he invited the Tang monk to the honored seat inside the full imperial carriage. His civil and military officials would lead the way while he and his family pushed the carriage forward by the wheels. They were sent to the edge of the city before the Tang monk finally came down the dragon carriage and bid farewell to everyone. The king said, "Oh, master, when you are on your way back from West Heaven, please consider dropping by our borders once more." Sanzang replied, "This disciple hears your orders." The emperor held tears in his eyes before returning with his officials. The tongue monk and his disciples thereby entered a wide meandering road as their hearts longed for nothing but Spirit Mountain. It was the end of autumn as winter approached. Leaves reddened as they grew thin, harvest occurred as the air chilled. They departed from the Black Rooster Kingdom. Resting by night and walking by day, about half a month went by when they suddenly came across another high mountain. So high it was, the peak could almost rub against the skies and block out the sun. Sanzang was rather frightened on the horse, so he quickly pulled his reins and called for Xingzhe. Xingzhe asked, "Master, what order do you have for me?" Sanzang said, "Look at this huge mountain and craggy ridges ahead. We must be extra careful and alert. I'm afraid some evil creature might attack me." Xingzhe chuckled and said, "Just keep on walking and quit thinking too much. Elder Sun protects you." The elder had no choice but calm his mind before whipping the horse forward. They arrived at the rocky part of the mountain, and it was indeed a precipitous place. Connecting heaven and the underworld, the mountain was home to countless caves and streams. Apes and deer roamed the place. Tigers and dragons frightened their visitors. Green rocks were dyed the color of jade. Mist shrouded the place like gauze. Master and disciples were quite alarmed when from the concave of the mountain rose a puff of red cloud. It came all the way up the azure skies before gathering into a ball of fire. Astonished, Xingzhe approached and clutched the tongue monk by his foot before dragging him off the horse, calling, "Brothers, do not run, a monster is coming." Panicking, Bajie quickly wielded his rake, while Sha monk held up his treasure staff. They all had the tongue monk surrounded and protected at the center. On the other hand, inside the red glow there was indeed a monster spirit. Several years ago he heard someone tell him, "There is a tongue monk from the land of the east who is heading to West Heaven for scriptures. He is the reincarnation of Elder Golden Cicada and a good man who cultivated for 10 lives. Anyone who takes a bite of his flesh will have their lives extended to match the longevity of heaven and earth." And so every morning he waited in the mountains, finally coming across the man on this very day. He watched carefully from mid-air and saw 3 disciples surrounding the tongue monk, who remained on the horse as they all prepared for battle. The spirit could not help but compliment them, saying, "Splendid monk. I just found a pale and plump Buddhist riding a horse. He truly is a divine monk from Tang Dynasty, but why is he escorted by 3 ugly monks? They're all pulling fists and rolling up their sleeves with weapons in hand like they're about to fight someone. Alas, I bet one of them has such sharp eyes that they felt my presence. No way I can get a taste of that tongue monk's flesh if it goes on like this." He went silent for quite a while before contemplating to himself. "If I want to snatch him by force, I will not be able to go near. I could instead lure him with kindness, which might work better. Once I have him spellbound, my wits will grow from his kindness before I take him without hesitance. Let me head down and play a trick on him." Splendid master! He quickly dispersed the red glow and descended from cloud. Walking onto a slope, he shook his body and transformed into a naughty 7-year-old child. Naked and unclothed, his limbs were tied with hemp rope, and he was hung high up in the branches of a pine tree. Repeatedly, he shouted, "Save me! Save me!" We go back to Great Sage Sun, who suddenly looked up to find the red cloud gone and the fire completely disappeared. So he called, "Master, please walk on with the horse." The tongue monk asked, "You just said a monster is approaching. Why is it fine to walk again?" Xingzhe explained, "Just now I saw a red cloud forming from the ground and turning into a fireball in mid-air, so I had assumed it must be a monster spirit. After a while, the red cloud has dispersed, so I believe it's a monster spirit who was just passing by and dare not hurt anyone. We shall be on our way." Bajie chuckled and said, "You sure have your way with words, elder brother. What kind of monster spirit is just passing by?" Xingzhe said, What do you know? A monster king may be hosting a banquet in some mountain or cave. If they invited the spirits from all the mountains and caves, then there will be spirits coming to attend the banquet from every direction. That's why they're only focused on reaching the banquet and have no intention to harm. That is what we call passing by spirits. Sanzang heard his words and only half believed them, but he could only get back on the saddle and head down the road toward the mountain. As they were moving, they could hear a voice going, "Save me!" The elder was extremely shocked and asked, "Oh, disciples, who is there calling in the middle of the mountains?" Xingzhe went up and said, "Master, just keep walking. Stop thinking about manned carriages, mule carriages, open carriages, and sleeper carriages. In a place like this, even if we have one, there isn't anyone to carry it for you." The Tang monk explained, "I wasn't saying carriages. I meant someone was calling." Xingzhe laughed and said, "I know. Don't you pay attention to those nonsense. Just keep walking." Sanzang followed his words and hurried the horse forward. They barely made another li when they once again heard someone calling, "Save me!" The elder said, "Disciples, this voice doesn't sound like it comes from ghosts or evil spirits. If so, there will only be a voice coming, but there will be no echo. Listen to them call once just now, followed by a second call. There must be a person in danger. We could go save them." Xingzhe said, "Master, please put away your heart of compassion for the day. Save that for after we've crossed this mountain. This place promises more woes than fortune. You know the theory about grass and wood being possessed by creatures who can become spirits? The usual types are harmless, but pythons can cultivate for years before they become spirits. They are very capable of learning someone's baby name. They might hide in the grass or the concave of a mountain when they call someone. If no one answered, that would be fine. But should anyone reply to the call, the spirits will snatch away their primal soul before following them into the night and harm their lives. Let's keep on walking. Keep on walking. As the ancients say, thank the gods if you can make the escape. We must not listen to that voice." The elder had no other option but follow his instructions, so he whipped the horse forward again. Xingzhe secretly thought to himself, "I wonder where this unruly master is calling from. Let Elder Sun gift them with a trick of stars never sharing the same skies, so they will never come across us." Splendid great sage. He first called Shamak over and told him, "Hold on to the horse and walk slowly. Allow Elder Sun to relieve myself." Look at him watching the Tang monk take a few steps ahead before reciting a spell. Using the trick of mountain moving and earth shrinking, he pointed behind with his golden hooped rod. Master and disciples thereby made it past this particular peak and headed forward, leaving the monster behind. Then, in wide strides, he caught up to the Tang monk and continued their journey through the mountain. Sanzang once again heard a voice calling, "Save me," but this time from behind the mountain. He said, "Oh, disciples, that suffering person must have lacked the destiny to come across us. We have passed them. Listen to them calling from behind the mountain now." Bajie said, "He must still be in front of us in the mountains. It's just that the direction of wind has changed now." Xingzhe said, "Forget about the direction of wind. Just keep on walking." They therefore walked on in silence, all wishing to cross the mountain in a single step. We will speak no more on that. We go back to the monster spirit who was on the slope when he called several times in a row, but no one came. He thought to himself, "I have been waiting for the Tang monk here. Judging with my eyes, he was no more than 3 li away from me. Why is it that they still haven't come after such a long time? They must have taken an alternative path." With a shake of his body, he freed himself from the ropes before unleashing the red light again into mid-air. Coincidentally, Great Sage Sun happened to be looking behind with his head turned up. He realized it was the monster, so he yanked the Tang monk off his horse by the foot again, calling, "Brothers, be very careful, the monster spirit has come again." Panicking, Ba Jie and Sha Monk each held their weapons and surrounded the Tang monk at the center. The spirit witnessed from mid-air and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. "Splendid, monk! I just saw a pale-faced monk sitting on the horse. How is it that the three of them are hiding him away again? Only after seeing them do I realize that I must take down the one with the sharp eyes first before catching the Tang monk. Otherwise, well, it would be a waste of effort and a difficult catch, while my energy is spent in vain with no result." He then descended from cloud again and transformed just as before. Hung high up in the pine tree, he waited by the mountain peak, but this time only less than half a li away.